There is a strange kind of loneliness that only exists at the very top. Imagine being Leonardo DiCaprio at 51. Your face has been recognized on every continent. Your movies have made billions. Directors considered untouchable build projects around you. You finally hold the Oscar the world spent years insisting you deserved. You own the kind of career actors spend lifetimes chasing. And yet, when the cameras disappear, almost every question people still ask about Leonardo has nothing to do with acting. Why has he never married? Why has he never had children? Why does the man who can command an entire movie seem determined to reveal almost nothing about himself? Why is his mother still the person most often beside him during the biggest nights of his life? And why, after surviving a violent childhood environment, obsessive-compulsive tendencies, frightening accidents, public ridicule, family chaos, and more than 3 decades of fame, does he still seem to live as if control is the one thing he cannot afford to lose? That is what makes Leonardo DiCaprio so fascinating. The story is not simply that a poor kid became famous. Hollywood is full of that story. It is that a child who grew up surrounded by instability somehow built one of the most controlled careers in modern cinema. And the more perfect the career became, the more private the man seemed to become. Long before the yachts, the premieres, the standing ovations, and the red carpets, there was just a boy named Leonardo growing up in Los Angeles. He was born on November 11, 1974, to George DiCaprio and Irmelin Inden Birkin. His father worked in the underground comic book world. His mother came from a German family marked by war, migration, and survival. According to the family story, while his parents were in Florence during pregnancy, his mother felt him kick while looking at a Leonardo da Vinci painting. That moment gave him the name that would later appear above some of the biggest films ever made. But the romantic beginning did not lead to a stable home. His parents separated when he was still extremely young. Instead of disappearing from his life, they remained nearby and tried to raise him together. That arrangement gave Leonardo access to both parents, but it also meant that from the beginning, home was not one simple place. He learned to move between worlds. That skill may have become one of the foundations of his acting. His mother, especially, became the center of his early life. She drove for hours across Los Angeles so he could attend better schools and later took him to audition after audition. This was not a family with industry power. There was no studio executive waiting to make a phone call, no dynasty, no famous surname opening the door. There was simply a mother willing to keep driving and a boy who kept asking for another chance. Then came one of the first small tests of identity. An agent reportedly suggested that Leonardo DiCaprio was too ethnic, too difficult, too unusual for mainstream Hollywood. The proposed solution was simple: change the name. Become Lenny Williams. Leonardo refused. Think about that for a moment. Before the fame, before the money, before he had any proof that his instincts were right, he was already unwilling to surrender the thing that made him himself just to make the industry more comfortable. The same stubbornness would define his career later. The early jobs were not glamorous. Television appearances, small roles, commercial work, a low-budget horror movie, parts in Parenthood, Santa Barbara, Growing Pains, and Critters 3. Nothing about those credits announced that one of the defining actors of his generation had arrived. Then, in 1993, everything changed. Leonardo was cast in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, opposite Johnny Depp. He played Arnie, a vulnerable young man with an intellectual disability. It was the kind of performance that could easily become exaggerated or sentimental in the wrong hands. Instead, Leonardo disappeared into it. The restless physicality, the unpredictability, the emotional innocence, the bursts of fear and excitement audiences did not see a young actor trying to win approval. They saw a character who seemed completely alive. He was still a teenager, but Hollywood suddenly understood that the face was not the story. The talent was. The performance earned him an Academy Award nomination for supporting actor. He did not win, but Hollywood had already learned his name. Then came Romeo plus Juliet. Baz Luhrmann turned Shakespeare into a fever dream of neon, guns, youth, music, and doomed romance. Leonardo became Romeo for a generation that might never have picked up the play. His face became a global object of fascination. And then came the movie that changed the scale of everything. Titanic, James Cameron's massive production, was already surrounded by anxiety before release. The budget was enormous. The shoot had been difficult. People inside the industry wondered whether the film could become one of Hollywood's most expensive disasters. Instead, it became a cultural earthquake. As Jack Dawson, Leonardo was no longer simply successful. He became unavoidable. His image covered magazines. Fans screamed outside premieres. Teenagers memorized scenes. The film became one of the biggest box office phenomena in history, and at just 23, Leonardo DiCaprio became the kind of celebrity that can destroy a person if they are not careful. That is where his story becomes more interesting. Because Hollywood immediately offered him the obvious future. He could have spent the next decade repeating Jack Dawson in different clothes. Romantic leads, safe blockbusters, enormous paychecks. Roles designed to protect the image that Titanic had created. He did almost the opposite. The beach was risky and divisive. Gangs of New York was dark and demanding. The Aviator placed him inside the tortured mind of Howard Hughes. Blood Diamond demanded another transformation. Most importantly, his collaborations with Martin Scorsese dismantled the idea that he was merely the beautiful young star from Titanic. But there was a price. The more seriously he took the craft, the more the Academy seemed to turn his losses into public theater. The Aviator brought another nomination. He lost. Blood Diamond brought another. He lost. Inception became a global success, yet his performance did not receive the acting nomination many fans expected. Django Unchained gave audiences one of his ugliest, most disturbing characters. Again, no acting nomination. Then, The Wolf of Wall Street arrived. As Jordan Belfort, Leonardo became manic, funny, disgusting, seductive, pathetic, and physically fearless, sometimes within the same scene. It was a performance engineered to destroy any remaining idea that he was simply coasting on charisma. Another Oscar nomination. Another loss. By then, his failure to win had become entertainment on the internet. Memes spread every award season. Fans joked that the Oscar was the one thing Leonardo DiCaprio could not obtain. He had become one of the most respected actors alive, yet the public conversation kept returning to the one trophy he still did not have. Then came The Revenant. This time, the suffering on screen was matched by the physical difficulty of the production. Freezing conditions, remote locations, natural light, brutal terrain. A performance built around exhaustion, pain, and survival. Leonardo later described the production as one of the hardest experiences of his career. And when the Academy Awards arrived in 2016, the room felt different. His name was called. After years of jokes, near misses, and expectation, Leonardo DiCaprio finally won the Academy Award for Best Actor. The audience stood. But one of the most revealing details came in what he did with the moment. He thanked the people who had supported him, including his parents, and then used part of the most important acceptance speech of his career to talk about climate change. That choice tells you something. Recognition mattered to him. Of course it did. But even during the moment when Hollywood finally centered the entire story on Leonardo DiCaprio, he redirected part of the attention towards something outside himself. Environmental activism became his second public identity. He supported conservation projects, produced environmental documentaries, backed climate campaigns, and used his celebrity to focus attention on oceans, forests, wildlife, and global warming. Critics have also pointed to the contradiction between that advocacy and the luxury travel associated with elite celebrity life. But contradictions are part of the real story. Leonardo DiCaprio is not interesting because he fits neatly into a heroic narrative. He is interesting because his life constantly produces opposites. Private, but globally famous. Environmentalist, but surrounded by extreme wealth. Romantic icon, but never married. One of the most visible men in the world, yet almost impossible to know. And beneath the career discipline is another private struggle, mentioned in interviews: obsessive-compulsive tendencies. That became especially relevant when he played Howard Hughes in The Aviator. Hughes's obsessive-compulsive disorder was central to the character, and Leonardo has spoken about his own tendencies becoming more intense during the process of inhabiting that role. Small compulsions, repeated behaviors, the urge to step a certain way, or repeat an action details invisible to an audience can become exhausting inside the mind of the person experiencing them. For an actor obsessed with authenticity, that role came dangerously close to home. But psychological pressure was not the only danger in his life. Leonardo has also described a series of frightening incidents that sound more like scenes from action movies than events from one person's life. During a shark cage experience in South Africa, a great white reportedly pushed partially into the cage while snapping at bait. During a skydiving jump, a parachute malfunction created another terrifying emergency. On a commercial flight, an engine reportedly exploded, forcing the plane into an emergency landing. During a diving incident, he had to be helped to safety. And in 2005, the danger came not from nature or machinery, but from another person. At a Hollywood party, a woman attacked him with a broken bottle, cutting his face and requiring stitches. For an actor whose face had become one of the most valuable and recognizable images in entertainment, the attack could have had permanent consequences. He survived that too. Fame creates the illusion of protection, but those incidents exposed its limits. Money, security, influence, and celebrity cannot negotiate with an accident. Again and again, Leonardo's life reminded him that control has limits. And perhaps nowhere was that clearer than inside his own family. His stepbrother Adam Ferrar had also worked in entertainment when he was younger. The two grew up close enough to share part of the same family world, but their adult lives moved in radically different directions. While Leonardo's career accelerated, Adam's life became associated with legal trouble and addiction-related problems. His adult life became marked by arrests, fractured relationships, and the loss of custody of his daughter, Normandy. Leonardo has rarely spoken publicly about the situation. That silence matters. Not because silence proves anything, but because it fits a pattern. When pain enters his private life, he does not usually explain it to the public. He closes the door. Reports have also described him remaining involved in his niece's life despite the distance between the brothers. If true, there is something quietly powerful in that image. The child who grew up in an unconventional, divided household becomes the adult trying to provide steadiness to another child living through family instability. It is not dramatic in the Hollywood sense. No speech, no camera, no awards, just presence. And then there is the subject that has followed Leonardo more relentlessly than almost anything except his films, his relationships. For decades, tabloids have documented his relationships with models and actresses, often younger than him. The internet eventually turned the ages of his girlfriends into a running joke, until the pattern almost became part of his public brand. But behind the meme is a more complicated question. What does Leonardo actually want from his private life? No outsider knows. That is important to say clearly. It is tempting to look at his parents' separation, his unusual childhood, his family difficulties, and his carefully controlled adult relationships and build a perfect psychological explanation. But a biography is not a diagnosis. Maybe he simply does not want marriage. Maybe he does not want children. Maybe privacy is the price he demands for living under global attention. Maybe the patterns mean something deeper. Maybe they do not. The honest answer is that the only person who truly knows is Leonardo himself. What we can see is that he protects his private world with extraordinary discipline. Where many celebrities use social media to expose family, relationships, vacations, and private emotions, Leonardo's public presence is almost the reverse. He posts about environmental causes while the person behind the platform remains largely hidden. He cannot stop photographers from recognizing him. He cannot stop tabloids from discussing who he is dating. He cannot stop the internet from turning his private choices into memes. But he can decide how much of himself he voluntarily gives away. And for decades, the answer has been very little. There is one person, however, who appears again and again: his mother. Across award seasons and major events, Leonardo has repeatedly brought Ermeline with him. That image has become one of the most enduring emotional details of his public life. The woman who drove him as a child and sat through the auditions remained there through global fame, nominations, losses, and finally, the Oscar win. It is moving, but it also reveals the deepest continuity in his life. Movies changed. Girlfriends changed. Homes changed. Directors changed. Public opinion changed. his mother remained. Perhaps that is why the image resonates so strongly. It is not about celebrity. It is about the one relationship that survived every transformation. His grandmother also connected him to a family history shaped by Ukraine, Germany, war, migration, and survival. When she died in 2008, one of his strongest links to that older world disappeared. His family story contains displacement, separation, two households, and later turmoil around his stepbrother. His professional life became almost the opposite: stable, deliberate, controlled, built to last. That contrast may be the key to understanding the public Leonardo DiCaprio. When personal life refuses to follow a script, work can become the place where the script is yours. On a film, there is a director, a schedule, a role, a goal. You know where the scene begins. You know where it ends. You can do another take. Real life gives no second take. Maybe that is why he has treated his career with such intensity. Not because acting is an escape from life, but because acting is one of the few places where chaos can be transformed into meaning. At 51, Leonardo DiCaprio does not look like a man winding down. Elite directors still want him, audiences still debate his performances, and younger actors can study the career path he built after Titanic. And that path may be his most important professional achievement. He survived becoming a phenomenon. Many actors are trapped by the role that makes them famous. Leonardo used Titanic as a launching point and spent the next 2 decades refusing to let Jack Dawson become a Cage. He chose difficulty. He chose filmmakers with strong visions. He chose characters who were corrupt, broken, obsessive, violent, frightened, ridiculous, desperate, or morally compromised. He protected the actor from the celebrity. That may be why the career lasted, but the private question remains. What happens when the work stops? What happens when there is no set, no character, no campaign, no premiere, no director waiting with another impossible role? Who is Leonardo DiCaprio when the room is quiet? The public does not know. And perhaps that is exactly how he wants it. Maybe the mystery is not evidence of emptiness. Maybe it is the final boundary he has managed to keep. Because after more than 30 years of being watched, discussed, photographed, criticized, desired, imitated, and analyzed, keeping part of yourself unreachable may be the closest thing to freedom. Still, there is one image that is difficult to forget. Not Jack standing at the front of the Titanic. Not Hugh Glass crawling through the snow. Not Jordan Belfort screaming into a microphone. Not the Oscar held above a black tuxedo. It is Leonardo walking beside his mother. The child who needed a ride to auditions is now one of the most powerful actors in the world, and the person beside him is still the woman who made those rides possible. That is where the story becomes larger than fame. Because success did not erase where he came from. Money did not erase family fracture. An Oscar did not erase anxiety. Privacy did not stop curiosity. Environmental activism did not erase contradiction. And age did not answer the questions people expected age to answer. He is still difficult to categorize. A romantic icon who avoided the traditional romantic ending. A movie star who distrusted easy stardom. A public activist with an intensely private personal life. A man surrounded by people, yet often presented by the media as unknowable. Maybe the mistake is assuming every life needs to look complete from the outside. Maybe Leonardo DiCaprio is not waiting to become the husband, father, or settled family man strangers expect. Maybe he has built exactly the life he wants. Or maybe the extraordinary discipline we admire is also armor. We cannot know. And that uncertainty is what keeps the story alive. The world has spent decades watching Leonardo DiCaprio play men who are chasing something. Love, money, survival, power, redemption, escape, control. Perhaps the reason those performances feel so convincing is not because he has lived the same lives as those characters. It is because he understands what it means to chase. A boy chased opportunity across Los Angeles. A young actor chased respect after global fame threatened to reduce him to a face. A mature artist chased the kind of roles that could outlive celebrity. An activist chased attention for a planet he believed people were ignoring. And through all of it, he protected the one thing Hollywood always tries to consume completely. the private self. So when people ask what the tragedy of Leonardo DiCaprio is, maybe tragedy is the wrong word. His life contains pain, danger, family wounds, contradictions, and unanswered questions. But it also contains loyalty, survival, artistic courage, discipline, generosity, and an almost unmatched ability to keep moving forward without letting the world decide who he must become. The real story is not that Leonardo DiCaprio secretly has nothing. It is that having everything never makes a human being simple. Behind every red carpet is a childhood. Behind every trophy is a history of rejection. Behind every controlled image is a person protecting something. And behind Leonardo DiCaprio, after all these years, is still the boy who refused to become Lenny Williams. The boy who kept his name. The boy who kept auditioning. The boy whose mother kept driving. The boy who became one of the most recognizable men alive without ever completely giving himself to the public. And maybe that is the final reason people cannot stop watching him. Not because we know Leonardo DiCaprio, but because after more than 30 years, we still do not. What do you think defines him most? The discipline that built the career, the privacy that protects the man, or the family bond that never disappeared? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy stories that look beyond the fame and into the complicated lives behind Hollywood legends, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the brightest spotlight can reveal a face, but it can never reveal an entire life.